Amazon just settled for a historic $2.5 billion with the FTC for their deceptive practices relating to their Prime membership. My name is Maria Sparagas, and I am a payment processing expert. And in this episode, I'm going to explain what happened with Amazon, why they were fined $2.5 billion. And most importantly, if you are a subscription merchant, I'm going to discuss with you how you can stay away from the FTC's wrath and 5 concrete steps that you can take today to ensure that you don't run into any compliance issues and that you maximize your profits while lowering disputes. Now let's get into what happened. So the FTC was suing and alleging that Amazon was making it very difficult and using dark patterns to ensure that customers don't have an option to not subscribe to Prime. In addition, Amazon was making it very difficult for customers to actually cancel their Prime membership once they were subscribed. So the FTC was attacking them on both fronts, and Amazon decided to settle this case. So essentially that means that they're claiming that they are guilty. What Amazon was doing was when they were presenting a Prime membership, they were making it nearly impossible for the consumer to find where to opt out. So they were not giving any type of information on how you can not sign up to Prime, and they were burying it under many terms and conditions and making it in a very small font. And when attempting to cancel, customers were sent through endless loops of retention offers and various reasons why they should not cancel, and asked multiple questions. In fact, it took 6 to 10 steps before a customer actually got to the option of canceling. And these practices are what got into the vision of the FTC as customers kept complaining about these practices that were done by Amazon. Obviously, Amazon is one of the biggest players in e-commerce. Everybody pretty much in the US, Canada, and Europe uses Amazon. So it did take a while for the FTC to really dig into it, and ultimately they found that Amazon was using these deceptive practices. And if Amazon is using these practices, what happens is that it trickles down to the whole economy of e-commerce. Other merchants see that Amazon is doing this, therefore they keep copying Amazon's business model, because if it works for Amazon, why wouldn't it work for you? Now, the important thing to note is that with the FTC and Amazon's settlement agreement, there's also some things that have come to light that are very important for subscription merchants to adhere to. Now, you may say, well, I'm very small. I don't really have, even close to the volume that Amazon has. And the important thing to note is that regardless of your size, it's important to have a compliant website and make sure that your customers know what they're subscribing to. Now, if you've been following my channel, you know that I've been talking about the FTC's click to cancel rule. That was a regulation that the FTC was trying to come up with to mandate all subscription merchants to have clear and concise policies regarding their subscriptions. Now, that fell through a couple of months ago, and it doesn't seem like that's going to pass into law. Keep in mind, there are some states like California that do have some very strict rules for subscription merchants. But the important thing to keep in mind is because of this historic case with the FTC and Amazon, there will be some major changes for all subscription merchants, and the FTC will be watching this very closely. And if you think your business is too small for the FTC to even notice, guess again. The FTC really looks closely at complaints boards, BBB complaints, and even complaints that they get lodged directly to themselves. And if they see, a couple of complaints coming from the same merchant mentioning the same thing, you could find yourself in big trouble with the FTC. Now let's really dig in as to what Amazon did, as this will provide you with a lot of lessons on what not to do in your online store with regards to subscriptions. Now, when somebody went to Amazon and tried to buy something, they were presented an offer to subscribe to Prime to get better delivery terms, perhaps some better fees, better offers, and so forth. Now, when the customer, for example, was continuing into the cart, it was almost impossible, and it was pre-checked in order to subscribe to Prime. In fact, in order to unsubscribe, they had to usually scroll down 2 or 3 times and see something very small, font size 10 or smaller, in order to unsubscribe. So this made it very difficult for customers who were trying to buy something on Amazon to avoid getting a Prime membership with it. So Amazon was making opt-out buttons nearly invisible, buried under tons of terms and so forth. So customers were in fact buying a product and, like it or not, getting a Prime membership with it. And then once customers were subscribed and saw the charges on their credit cards and so forth, and maybe wanted to cancel, they were put through a myriad of various retention offers, various questions in order to cancel. In fact, internally, Amazon employees named the cancellation process the Iliad after the epic poem because it was so difficult and hard to understand for customers to get out of a Prime membership. Now, when the FTC dug into this, they said that's deceptive and that's unfair. And at Amazon's size, with how many sales they've done and how many complaints they've received, this is an epic settlement, $2.5 billion. $1 billion is a fine that is assessed to Amazon, and $1.5 billion will go to consumers and customers who've complained about getting wrongfully billed by Amazon for Prime subscriptions. Now, in addition to these fines, the FTC has regulated that Amazon must have a compliance SAR, somebody who will be reviewing their practices, reviewing their billing, and making sure that this doesn't happen again. So this is a really big deal for Amazon. This can cause a lot of issues for them moving forward. And also it's losing trust from the consumer. Now, I know Amazon is a very big company and people, are used to buying from Amazon and, somewhat trust Amazon, but this will actually tarnish their reputation moving forward because they've been shown and found guilty of having these bad practices against their consumers. Now, beyond compliance and making sure that you don't have any issues with the FTC, the important part here to understand is you want to keep your customers' trust. So making sure that you have clear and concise billing practices is not only going to benefit you by, not getting into trouble with the FTC or having compliance issues, but it will also ensure that you get less disputes, less refunds, and less customer complaints. Overall, if you abide by some very simple rules, you will actually make more money and have happier customers that keep coming back. Now let's dive in what you can be doing in your online store to ensure that you are offering subscriptions in a compliant manner and making sure that your customers are happy after their buying experience. Now, I do want to mention to you, as a business person myself, I understand that sometimes compliance can make it a little bit more difficult to close the sale. So these tips will ensure that you stay compliant, but you don't sacrifice your conversions, because it is important, obviously, to balance being compliant, but also making sure that you make some sales. First and foremost, you have to have clear disclosures. So if you are charging something on a monthly basis, on your checkout page, right when the customer is putting in their credit card information, what you want to have is really just a clear disclosure that they have to check off agreeing to whatever price you're going to charge them and any subscription that they're subscribing to. So for example, you want to have a little checkbox that says, I agree to pay $30 today, and I understand that I will be billed $30 every month until I cancel. That's very clear. It doesn't really lead to any confusion. And obviously, if clients are not interested in that, they will just not buy. It's better to have a customer know what they're getting signed up to. Then they get their credit card statement. They feel like they've been ripped off. Obviously, it's so easy for customers at this point to file a dispute and to complain and so forth. So, you're avoiding yourself a lot of headaches if you just make it very clear and specific what the customer is signing up to. Now, a little note on that. If you are offering a free trial, it is very enticing. A lot of customers do like to try something for free before they continue and commit to a monthly membership. Just make sure you tell your customers how long the trial is for. You could also decide to have some kind of consent after the trial is over to make sure that, for example, after 3, 7 days or 14 days, however long your trial lasts, you can just have a little reminder email sent to them that they will be billed whatever the price is for the full amount. And that way you can obviously get yourself out of some trouble with chargebacks if the customer was well informed before the trial expired. One point to emphasize on the billing practices is you want to get affirmative consent. What I mean by that is if you have a checkbox that's pre-checked, well, some customers may glaze over that. So what you want to do is have it unchecked. And if they don't check the box, for example, then they cannot check out. So it's very easy to get their consent because they will manually have to check that box in in order to continue. Hoping to be silent and passive and just having customers go through the cart without noticing, this is a practice of the past. And I can tell you from experience, I've been in payments for over 20 years. I've seen a lot of different business models and checkout pages evolve. These things do not pass the sniff test with consumers anymore. Consumers are very used to buying things online. They're also very used to lodging disputes when they're not happy. So this is a practice that, has retired and should retire completely. Just make sure that you have a checkbox that's unchecked and have your customers check it if they want to buy from you and continue a subscription with you. Now, one thing that's important for you is we emphasize in marketing that you have to make the consumer experience very seamless. You have to make it easy for your customers to buy. The checkout process has to be very clear, fast, and easy for them to get on with their day. Now, the important thing to note is that you should have that same experience when somebody wants to cancel. So if somebody's buying from you online, they should be able to cancel their subscription online with a few clicks. Now, I understand you don't want to just tell people, hey, do you want to cancel? Yes or no? And then they move on. You may want to present a retention offer. My personal opinion is that you should ask the customer why they want to cancel and then present a retention offer that makes sense for their reason of cancellation. So if, for example, somebody says this is too expensive, you may offer them, for example, 50% off their next subscription or a smaller dose of the product you're selling or whatever the case is. So, ask them a question, present them one offer, and then let them go. You can still keep these customers on your email list and present them other offers. If they had a good experience with you as they were canceling and signing up and so forth, they may be more willing to come back to you if they ever need your product or service again. Now, as I just mentioned, you want to present them one retention offer just to try and see if you can capture that sale again. What Amazon was doing is presenting multiple retention offers, and that can get very frustrating for customers as they're at one point not even reading what is being presented because they just want to cancel. And what Amazon did was also change around the yeses and the nos. So if somebody was just quickly going through that checkout flow, they were actually signing up to other things as well. So please make sure not to use these deceptive practices. As I said, choose one retention offer, figure out why customers want to leave. And if they don't take the retention offer, at least you know why they left. So you can take that feedback. And if it comes up often, then you might take that feedback and change your business model or have some different billing practices. Now, very importantly, to make sure that you stay out of trouble and that you stay compliant, the FTC asks that you maintain records for 3 years. So any customer conversations that you have, any type of email exchanges, or if the customer files a dispute and you have a rebuttal to that dispute, it is important that you keep these interactions for at least 3 years. If, for example, the FTC ever comes knocking on your door, then you'll be able to quickly, present them proof that you're doing what you need to be doing, that you have records for any customer complaints, and so on and so forth. So it is very important that you keep a log of all of this for at least 3 years. Now, one bonus tip that I recommend very highly if you have 1-year subscriptions. So yearly subscriptions are an excellent idea for SaaS products, educational products, and so forth. But what happens is a lot of consumers actually consume the information in a couple of months and then forget about it. And then 1 year later, they get billed. They get very frustrated at this billing because they weren't aware of it. They may have not used the product or service for many, many months, and now have to obviously log a complaint and say that, they never intended on renewing. So if you do offer 1-year subscriptions, I highly, highly recommend that you send an email renewal at least 30 days in advance, advising the customer that their renewal is up in 30 days, giving them options to cancel, presenting them with some alternatives if, for example, they want to switch to another product and so forth. And I guarantee you, you will have happier customers, you will have less disputes, and you will make more money by doing this, because I see a lot of yearly subscription SaaS products, get riddled with disputes during specific months, high sign-up months. A year later, a lot of these turn into disputes, turn into refunds and so forth. So although you may be making money right now, in a year from now, if you continue this type of practice, you may in fact hurt yourself even more and hurt your business even more by having high dispute or refund rates. Now, one thing that's important also, as we're talking about disputes and fraudulent requests and so forth, there is a new program that Visa is launching very shortly called VAMP. It is something that they soft launched in April of 2025, and it's going to be enforced as of October 2025. And what this is Visa's attempt to clamp down on fraud or customers who are claiming claiming they have been frauded. So this is right now a perfect time, given the FTC case against Amazon and Visa's new fraud regulations. It is a really good time to look at your practices, to clean house, to make sure that everything is working properly. Because with Visa's new VAMP program, if a customer claims fraud, says they never bought from you or they don't recognize the charge, what will happen is that will count towards your VAMP ratio, and that can get you in trouble with your merchant account. It can get you shut down from your merchant account. It could also get you some really big fines if you go over the threshold. I have a whole episode about this that I'll link down below, but essentially a lot of merchants in the e-com and direct response space were using chargeback alerts like Ethica, Verify, RDR to stay out of trouble with their merchant account providers. This is no longer going to work. If a customer claims fraud, regardless of whether it went through the alert system and you refunded it, it will still count towards your fraud ratio. So it is very important to really pay attention to this and do what you can to clean up your billing practices so you can avoid as many disputes as possible. So to recap, Amazon got fined $2.5 billion. So it is very important for all subscription merchants to heed this warning and really clean up what they're doing in their subscription billing practices. Even giants like Amazon cannot escape the wrath of the FTC when it comes to consumer rights and consumer complaints. So it is very important right now with all the upcoming regulations and this new case to really take a look at what you're doing, follow the tips that I mentioned above. And the most important thing as a business owner is to use your common sense. You are a business owner, but you're also a consumer. So if you feel like it's difficult to buy from you, or it's deceptive, or you have a couple of family and friends go through your cart and get confused as to what they're buying, that's a big sign that you should be doing something different to make sure that your business is sustainable, you have a low dispute rate, and very importantly, you stay compliant with the FTC so you don't get any letters or somebody knocking on your door that you are not compliant and you are causing issues for consumers. So if you are an online merchant and you get even a couple of disputes per month, it is very important for you to learn what these new Visa regulations are for fraud and to make sure that you abide by them, because you will start seeing fines by the end of October. If you have any questions about the FTC case or the new VAMP regulations, feel free to drop me a line down below. Now, if you found this episode helpful, it would really help me out if you press that like button and you subscribe to this channel for more amazing content. And I appreciate you listening. Have yourself a great day.